Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Cheap Seats. This is your weekly Premier League show where we talk all things Premier League. We've got the team here, got the guys here. They came out of their holes because this weekend, guys went silent. Guys went truly silent in the WhatsApp groups. But we managed to dig them out because somehow Alessandro Martinez can't hold on to Erling Haaland. And so we're going to talk about all of that and also how William Saliba just needs to pull out Harry Kane from his pockets as well. Cyrus, since you and I are the winners, I'll start with you. How are you doing, my man?
Just doesn't really matter, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the fact of the fact. I was talking to a good friend. I'm very good, by the way, to say. I was talking to a really good Arsenal supporting friend of mine, and over the years, he used to absolutely give me so much stick when I would, be like talking Chelsea, supporting Chelsea. He'd be like, "Oh, but you play such terrible football," and he apologized to me a few days ago. He said, "What a stupid argument to make." Because at the end of the day, nobody opens up their history books or looks at the stats pages and sees 3-2 won by luck. It's just not how it goes.
Yeah. Dean, you come out of the hole. How are you feeling this? We're going to talk about how you feel, but how are you doing today?
No, I'm good. I'm just wearing black in mourning still. Of Saturday. So
you should be wearing bright colors. Congratulations on your engagement.
Yeah, that is good, but funny how football can make everything seem worse.
And Wahid, Alessandro Martinez's staunch supporter, how are you doing today?
Not good.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to make your day a little bit worse, Wahid, because remember, this show is sponsored by Classic Shirts ZA. You can go into the website, get any Premier League shirt you want. And so today's shirt of the week, can you guess? Can anybody guess?
I'm gonna hazard a guess. Wow!
Just to make Wahid's day a little bit worse.
You know what's amazing about that is that he's actually got his one hand at 0 and the other hand at 6. And
yes. So for the newbies, for those who are the new Manchester City supporters, those who can't fill out the Etihad,
so the whole fan base.
Yes, you can get your Manchester City jersey at cheap. It's actually on sale, this home kit. And you can obviously then use the Cheap Seats 99 discount code as well. It's the shirt Wahid saw all the time on Sunday. And it's a shirt many of us are going to probably see quite a lot. So if you want to look like Erling Haaland, go to Cheap Seats. Go to Classic Shirts ZA, not Cheap Seats. You come to watch us.
There's no City fans old enough, but someone should probably try and get a Haaland shirt.
His father's shirt.
Erling and a Haaland shirt for Alfie, but nobody's old enough to have supported City when no City supporters old enough to have supported City when Alfie played for them.
You mean Sean Goater and the likes? It's actually a great shirt for yoga because as Erling Haaland showed us, bending over to get the ball out of the back of the net, it's got a lot of stretch. it's really pretty. It's a fiber that breathes well. So yeah.
What is it called? I did yoga a month ago and we were trying to explain that move.
To be perfectly honest, we also make a great tennis shirt because of like 6'3". Sounds more like a
can I just say one thing? I'm so happy it was the Manchester derby because it took all the limelight away from how bad Spurs were. Everyone's just like, United. Let's just talk United.
Okay, so. And you keep on bringing Spurs back into it. I'm going to go to you.
Let's start with the start of the weekend.
So we had 3 derbies. One Chelsea, one just, as Dean says, but a win's a win. But Arsenal versus the Spurs. Did you expect to win that, Dean? First of all,
so I wouldn't say. I mean, we spoke about it last week. I wasn't expecting to win, but I wasn't expecting to put up such a bad performance as what the team did on Saturday. I think there's a few things. If I was a Man United fan, I wouldn't be. You can't really say too much because you got outplayed completely. From a Spurs perspective, like we made very stupid mistakes, which led to us losing that game. That Lloris fumble, very much like out of character, but
he's
ridiculous.
Trying to argue with you.
Yeah, I know he's trying, but I'm just
no. I don't like. I think that what you're saying about the Manchester derby is a bit false because I think as much as City were really good, I think United were exceptionally bad. So I think there are parallels to be drawn between the two games. And I think United were as much responsible for their own downfall as City were. So we'll get to that, but I don't entirely agree with the fact that it was just City.
But you were outplayed first off. So let's talk.
Yeah, no, fair enough. but the thing is, we were outplayed, but there were reasons we got outplayed, and that was our own doing. I mean, when you can't pass the ball straight between two players, you're always going to struggle, and then other stuff hampered us. But we'll get to that. I just don't entirely agree.
Write it down on a piece of paper, and you can talk about it then.
Okay,
you know he's got it in an Excel document.
Exactly. But the Spurs game. I mean, the Emerson Royal red card, can't complain about. Completely stupid decision by him going to his own
was a
goal.
little harsh.
No,
it's a red card. I mean,
especially on first viewing, yes, maybe. But when you actually look at how high up the ankle he catches him and the angle in which he gets him,
it's a red card.
It's a red
and
card.
Also, the thing is, it's not even the fact of it, the red card. It's the fact of where they were or where he was when he kicked Martinelli like that. Like, it's so unnecessary. So things like that ruin the game. Well, from a Spurs fan perspective. But also I think Arsenal played really well to counter what we had going. I mean, they played the high line. They made sure we never were able to turn that front three. And that midfield, they just compressed. I think there were a few, obviously, injury concerns from our part. Like Kulusevski was injured. It was reported that Basuma came back injured. So Conte couldn't play that 3-5-2 that I spoke about in the previous or last week. So there was a few concerns around there, but I still don't think it take nothing away from Arsenal. They played really well. They deserved the win. Spurs fans walked away with their tails between their legs. And I think it's something now where we're going to see, can Conte get the troops back up and running and actually come back and do something? Or is it going to become a bigger problem of, oh no, he has another Spurs team that loses once to Arsenal. Now we go on a run of 3, 4, 5 games where we just look shambolic. So there's a lot to be seen.
I have a question to throw at you there. So you're saying that you didn't expect to win, and you're saying that Conte needs to just pick the boys up. But to me, it seemed more of a case of United actually showed you a blueprint of how to beat Arsenal. There was a tactical blueprint of what you could do to go beat this team, and Conte seems to have a plan A and be unwilling to go to a plan B, and that was pre-match. I thought that he probably set his stall out a little bit wrong, and we'll talk about Ten Hag because he definitely set his stall out wrong. But Conte
he forgot what he did a month ago.
Yeah, he set his stall out wrong, and then was too proud to change it in the match when it was obviously not working. So do Spurs have some form of a need for plan B, which they're not developing, where you can't go through a season with only plan A, especially after you've been shown how to beat Arsenal? It's not that hard.
So I think there's two responses to that. I think Arsenal knew now how they were going to get beat, and I think they defended way better against that because they knew Spurs could exploit that, probably to the same extent United did, but maybe even better with Son, Kane, and Richarlison. So I think Arsenal did well to counter that. But yeah, at the same breath, I think Conte definitely has his 11, and he's even said this week, like, the comments he's made about Matt Doherty saying Matt Doherty's not ready to start, he doesn't want to lose. So it's basically saying, I'm not going to play Matt Doherty because if I do, I'm going to lose. So I think there is a bit of rigidness, if you can call it that, but I also think there's a potential lack of some of the players, again, not stepping up, but also just Conte doesn't trust the second string, if you can call it that, at Spurs. And the guys that he did trust are injured. Like Richarlison and Kulusevski, he trusts, and he will rotate both on when needs be. But he's not going to put on Matt Doherty when Emerson is playing poorly, and he's not going to put on Jed Spence when the right wing back is playing poorly.
Nor should he be putting Jed Spence on generally.
So
in retrospect, Ashley Young was someone who would have fitted in really well at Spurs for one season. I mean, he's gone to Villa, but under Conte, his contract was up. He's played for Conte before, and he could fill a gap in that squad for a season.
No,
but I don't think it was, because if you go to Wahid's point, right, for me, what I saw from Spurs was, as you say, Wahid, a rigid style that wasn't willing to move. But from the issue I had and what I saw, well, not issue I had against Spurs, I was happy that this was happening, was they allowed Arsenal so much space and time on the ball in the midfield. And the question for me was, why did you go for Hoiberg instead of Basuma? Because Basuma has given Arsenal lots of problems. He's always been the problem inside there.
But that was an injury.
But Basuma came back injured.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So,
but even then,
so he was on the bench and he should have played him. And I think everyone was calling him to play him, but he came back with a bit of a muscle injury and wasn't available to be played. So I think he would have played him.
Because I'm not entirely certain he's being trusted right now. I think Conte had a comment a couple of weeks ago to say that he needs some bidding in.
He hasn't grasped the tactical aspect of Conte's game yet. But
the thing is, But the thing is, Man United did this really well against us, was the physicality. Any 50-50 ball they came on, McTominay deserved to be red carded, but he wasn't. But it helped. Lissandro was kicking everybody. And that's how you kind of break the rhythm. And I think in that game at the Toilet Bowl last season, that's what broke Arsenal's rhythm. It wasn't necessarily this flashy play, but it was a little bit more get in their faces.
No, I agree with you. And
that was missing.
He wasn't going to, if he can't throw on Basuma, he can't throw on Pape Metsar, who's a 19-year-old who's just coming from the French league. There's no one on that bench that you say, go on, you're a bit physical and you can rub Arsenal up. There's no Lamela on that bench,
I wouldn't even say Lamela is that guy. I mean,
but you know what I'm trying to say.
Look,
there's none of that grittiness that he had. So I think he was caught between a rock and a hard place. So
isn't that a Conte problem though? Because in essence, this is a team of his making. Yes, there are always going to be constraints around how the owner spends and doesn't spend. But at the end of the day, Conte has actually brought in a lot of guys who he feels will do a job. And the reality is that they didn't switch up the formation to do much in order to change anything in that team. And that's a Conte issue. And I think in this particular instance, Conte he's not a person who fixes a problem while it's happening. He will fix the problem after the fact. In fact, crazily, and maybe I'm not saying what'll happen with Spurs, but when Chelsea lost to Arsenal 3-1 at the Emirates, it changed completely. We suddenly started to play three at the back, and then before you knew it, we went on to win the league. Conte is that kind of guy who says, okay, fine, now I've got time to do my homework. I can actually see where there's going to be issues. Let me see how we can build this way. And he's, in-game tactical switching is just not what happens with him, especially if you're trying to change stuff.
And that's what I'm saying. I think, sorry. And that's why I'm just saying, so going ahead, I want to see more of what Spurs are going to do now. And the games are coming thick and fast. We've got a game pretty much every 3 or 4 days until the World Cup. So does Conte have enough time to do like what you're saying, go home, do a bit of homework and change it? We'll see. I hope he does. And it starts tonight in the Champions League in Frankfurt. So we'll see.
But I also want to counter your point about Spurs not being outplayed. So looking at the match stats, right? Arsenal had 64.7% possession, 9 shots on target, 22 shots on goal in total, 750 touches, 556 passes, compared to Spurs' 307 passes, 468 touches, 7 shots overall. Spurs were absolutely nowhere in that game. And it was really, really something to behold, because if there's one thing that's been true about Spurs for the last maybe even 10, 15 years, actually, is that you've always had a couple of really classy players in your team, and suddenly they just go missing in games like this. And sometimes that's got to do with the fact that the rest of the teammates are absolutely poor, or the fact that the managers themselves are just not up to snuff. And now you've got relatively good players with a good coach who just don't seem to be able to lift this team. And but it's honestly, I mean, and I'll go back to the Chelsea game. Spurs celebrated that draw like it was a victory, and whenever I see teams do
where's the celebration police?
But this is why
that was a different kind of game, though.
But this is why I dislike Gabriel Martinelli to begin with. He scored this equalizer against Chelsea, and suddenly it was like he's going to be the next big thing. And I was like, you guys drew a game and were absolutely terrible. Spurs haven't necessarily progressed forwards, and this is what I've seen. Like, it's not like Conte arrived at the beginning of the season. He's been there a while now. He's had the opportunity to work with a lot of these players, and I haven't seen the progression If anything, Spurs seem to have just stagnated, and that would be more worrying for me as a Spurs supporter than anything else. Is that where's Conte's heart in this?
I disagree to some extent because it's our first loss in the Premier League. Fine, it's the first. We got exposed 100%. Put your hand up. I think a lot of those passes and goals came after the red card. So there's a lot of.
Why is everybody
outside of
that
this
as an
game?
excuse?
What I'm saying is,
game.
But what I'm saying is, Spurs deserve to lose 100%. But for me now, are we the same Tottenham that you've said for the last 10, 15 years, and we climb into a shell and we lose the next 2-4?
Probably not.
Or do we now crack on? And that's what I want to see.
This loss now comes off Sporting. Just remember that we're not just looking at it in terms
but it comes off us beating Leicester 6-2 as well.
Yeah, this is also Leicester, who we've all, I mean, except for Chelsea, obviously we're going to lose to them. But the point that I'm making is, I think that when you see Spurs do well, it isn't always because you can see that they're a well-coached side. It comes down to players doing some incredible things on the day, and Son scoring a hat-trick off the bench. You saw that game against Sporting, and you saw exactly the same issues that you had against Arsenal. And that was my point. I'm not saying Spurs are woeful, far from it, but I just haven't seen progression. That's the key thing for me.
So, Cyrus, to close us off, I think for me this weekend, from both derbies, right, I felt like there were teams, as you say, that were well-coached, but teams also that are reliant on a couple of players making magical moments. And yes, the one team did end up scoring 6, but you can see that City are well coached. And whereas United, you need somebody to create something magical in order for them to win a game. And that's where I come to you, Wahid. What did you see? Because Cyrus spoke about this last week. He was like, no, but Manchester United necessarily have the cheat code to City because they've beaten Arsenal, and Arsenal's like a City-like side. And it was talking about Spurs as well, to be like, Spurs should just look at what Manchester United did. It felt to me like you kind of let go of all of that at Manchester City, but I do get you conceded in the 8th minute. That changes everything. But how do you feel about the approach? And also, one question while you talk. Why do you guys pay so much money for Casemiro for him to sit on the bench?
I don't know. Absolutely no idea.
To appease the fans. You know exactly why they spent it. And this was the thing, is that every United fan at the time was like, we're not spending, we're not bringing anybody in, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And the pressure ends up being exactly the same. And suddenly you splash all of this dosh on a guy who isn't necessarily who the manager wants, but is a name. Right. And was this also not at the height of all of the protest stuff happening? And suddenly, as soon as Casemiro signs, it was like, oh, no, wait, maybe we will be at the game. And people are trying to hug the guy and get his shirt signed. Right.
Well, no, I don't agree. I don't think the protest died down. Well, I don't think the people who understand the protest will stop the protest because of a shiny new signing, because shiny new signings are part of the problem. But anyway, what I did see from Man United was in those 4 or 5 games we won, I did see positive signs of us moving forward. I saw patterns of play emerging that we had previously lacked under previous coaches. I saw us trying to do things the way the manager wanted, but I also saw the manager adapting his way to the Premier League, because I think he saw those first 2 games trying to do it exactly the way he wanted to do it, and he got an absolute hiding. And I think that you do need to accept that this is a new manager to the league, and he's going to learn on the job at times. And I think he did learn on the job. So we did see in those games where we played a bit better, we saw his subtle approach mixed with a direct approach. And we especially saw that in the Arsenal game. We saw a more direct, robust approach coupled with the subtleties that he wants in a game. You know, the fullbacks tucking in and Dalot impressing in those games. And I thought that all of that went out the window. We started the game, and before we even conceded the first goal, I tweeted to say that Anthony is giving Dalot absolutely no protection, and it reminded me of last season in those first few months under Ole, when all of us were looking at this team and saying, why the F are we playing a 4-2-4? And it just means that the defense, the midfield, and the attack are so disjointed that nothing can happen. You can't have any constructive patterns of play. I mean, when I opened the team sheets and I saw Ake and Akanji, I thought, yeah, that will do. We can get at them. But the problem is that you need to get the ball to get at the defense. And we just couldn't get the ball. And that was us not being able to get the ball was a direct result of the team panicking, losing shape, and playing in a disjointed manner where they absolutely threw out the principles that you could see the manager trying to install for the last 2 months. So I think that this was we probably saw 3 steps forward and a couple back in this game, but I don't think it's insurmountable. I really want to chalk it off to a bad day at the office, because I think the players panicked. I think the players were overawed by the occasion, and I think that they reverted to their norm, which was last season's norm. And I think it's going to take Ten Hag time to break that reverting to these players' norm.
Here's my question, right? Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo has been in this match many times, and I know a lot of people don't like him, but Roy Keane, and I don't like Roy Keane, but he had a point.
Of course you don't like Roy Keane.
I don't.
He ruined your childhood. Of course you don't like him.
I don't like him as
He's
a
also
pundit.
not a great
I don't
pundit.
like him. Yeah, he's not. But he had a question. Obviously, you speak about the occasion and everything else. Casemiro has been in Champions League finals. He could have sat there and given you the intelligence you need. Even when, so here's my thing, right? Well, I hate when coaches do this, but a substitution when you're 2-0 down would have been okay. Take out Scotty, bring in Casemiro, and be like, guys, let's be intelligent.
No. 2-0 down was in 20 minutes, so that's quite harsh.
Yeah.
I seem to blame the players. When I lost challenge, I seem to be blaming the players, but by the same token, Ten Hag isn't faultless. That game was crying out for a midfield, sort of along the lines of Casemiro and Fred, someone really hard, someone with a bit of energy and running with the ball. Whatever Fred's limitations are, he does thrive in games like this. You know, he gets to that place where he's playing between the lines, he runs the ball. His passing isn't the best sometimes, but he is helpful in games like this. And this game was sort of crying out for someone like that. So Ten Hag is definitely not blameless. And I also thought that you saw a different side once we changed from Malacia to Shaw, and I think that people might be getting a little bit carried away in the praise of Malacia. He's a good player with obvious limitations, but he isn't going to be. Well, he isn't and shouldn't be starting every single game. We saw Arsenal really getting the better of him. Saka ran him to shreds, and. As much as I'm not a fan of Shaw, and I think he has limitations, I think that we do need to accept that you can't just chuck Malacia in and say you're going to play all season. There is Luke Shaw and sort of like horses for courses, and I think that there was another problematic area with Malacia playing there. So yeah, I don't think that Ten Hag was blameless at all in that defeat. But again, as I said, he's learning on the job. He's learning what it takes in England, and I've said before, Ten Hag is not going to come in and win us the league this season. There are going to be good patches. We are going to win games. We are going to win 4 on the trot. Everyone's going to think it's rosy. We're going to start talking about things that we shouldn't be talking about, and then we're going to lose a couple. And that's going to be the nature of our season.
Did you think coming into the game that you could have snuck this one?
No, I didn't think so. I'd watched City in the games before that, and I wasn't expecting a drubbing like we got, but I wasn't expecting us to win that game by any stretch of the imagination. I pretty much, if you had me on the show last week, I probably would have thought 3-1 to City.
Okay,
exactly what I said.
Cyrus, I'm going to go to you, but I want us to segue to our next one. Is that you watched that game, you've watched this man, but watching that game, is he the most feared striker ever in the Premier League? Because obviously. Yes, but this is gonna
heck of a thing, but yeah.
But have them, because we've all watched the Premier League. I'll tell you now, I was afraid of Robin van Persie coming back to the Emirates. I didn't want to see that guy. You know, I was afraid of Cristiano at times. I was afraid of Drogba at multiple times.
I was afraid of Chicharito. But you know, we all have weird phobias. So I will say this. Look, he scored enough goals against Chelsea for me to be like, oh God, not this man out there. But I will say this around most feared. I think that he is the possibly most feared right now. But I don't think that he's the most feared ever, because it's a weird thing. And what I hate about ever and GOAT and all of these things is like, it's not as if you die when you're 50 and nothing had ever happened, previous to that. I mean, like Alan Shearer at one point should have been one of the most feared strikers and was, but nobody ever went into a game thinking, Shearer, we'll never be able to stop him. And I think this is the thing about Haaland, is that this idea of the inevitability of him scoring is also a bit of a misnomer. I think that Haaland scores well because he fits into the system where the midfield plays him into incredible spaces. His first goal was just, that's Kevin De Bruyne doing what Kevin De Bruyne does. And there's so much about him that is spectacular, but I think it also has to do with the way he's fed by his teammates and obviously how the coaches set things up. It's not like they're just lumping the ball up there and everybody just stands and watches, right? Because he's not the only person that scored a hat-trick in that game. And this is what people seem to be forgetting, is that Phil Foden, who doesn't ever really get any of the plaudits that he should do, I think he's a fantastic footballer, scored 3 goals in that game. And, potentially could have done a lot more damage as well. So to go back to the United thing, I think that there are major issues at United right now. And I want to ask Wahid something that I know will be a bit of a touchy subject for him. But from the time he came to the club to that Manchester derby in the weekend, Jadon Sancho has not showed enough to unlock any teams. And this is a major problem, I feel, for United, because Anthony at least has the pace to just go after people, right? He will go at you, he'll take shots, and good shots. He'll be in the right positions. Sancho literally is an outlet to the wing that never really goes anywhere. And especially if you're trying to play at pace. Yeah, I guess, he's, but this is the thing. He can't outpace anybody, really. He's good at dribbling, but that, as South African football has showed us, dribbling doesn't win you a game. So I'm struggling to see what the benefit of playing him is. Because I don't think teams make specific plans for him to be like, okay, you got to stick to him, skin tight, make sure you don't. Because it's like, he's just Rashford in disguise. Okay, I've got to get my little Rashford dig in there. But Wahid, do you feel the same way?
Yes, I've been hoping to see this. I've been hoping and praying and almost convincing myself that I'm going to see this player that was like built to be the next big thing to coming to the league, yet set the German league alight. But I'm almost just seeing this player every week that Gareth Southgate doesn't want to pick, and I'm almost resigned to the fact that I'm like,
can see why.
Yes, I can see why. Like every single week, I can see why Gareth Southgate doesn't want to play this player. Like I just don't understand what he does a lot of the time. Like he does very, very little in games, and he's not grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck. He's not scoring. He's not assisting. He's not doing much. And there's a player we paid £72 million for. I mean, you can't have 3 seasons to bid a player at that price in. So I'd almost be willing to say, look, he's young. He's very young. He's very, very young.
Yeah. Wahid, would you put him on fraud watch?
No, I'm not sure about fraud watch for now.
He better be there. He better be there. No, but the other thing for me is we're very quick to jump down the throats of 100 million strikers who don't produce in goals, right? Or 70 million strikers like Timo Werner who don't do anything, or Kai Havertz. When you look at
Jack
your own team, and this was going to be my point, is that in a game where United are playing their biggest rivals in City, and people have been talking absolute trash about Jack Grealish, Jack stepped up. He was able to run with the ball at defenders and made a lot of United players look silly on the day. Yet you've got your own 70-odd million footballer in wearing red who did absolutely nothing. He looked as if he could have been in the stands having a drink at some point. And this is for me. Look, he was anonymous. He was really anonymous. And this isn't the first game. And I don't think it'll be the last game.
But it's quite similar to the Pulisic situation at Chelsea. He just goes through games a lot of the time, and it's almost like the Pulisic replacement at Dortmund, like came to the league and did exactly what Pulisic did in the league.
But the weird thing is, at least Pulisic actually went through some purple patches. He scored a lot of goals, made some assists, did some stuff. I haven't seen Jadon Sancho do much. He's scored a couple of goals, but he's not taken over a game. And I think the Ford Watch stuff is a problem, but I do think that he's gotten a really, really easy ride for a player who's you spent a lot of money on and hyped a heck of a lot. He's just been there selling shirts.
Also, for someone we chased for that long.
Yeah,
I mean, we chased you for that long.
Failed attempt, and then re-attempt. So
yeah.
Well, all I can say is, Wahid, when you do get
he's making
de Jong,
the Anthony money looking good.
Well, I'm saying when you do get Frankie de Jong, let's hope he's not a Jadon Sancho. Yeah. Dean, you had something to add on Erling Haaland.
Quickly, so just want to point out, remember when Wahid said that Haaland wouldn't fit the City system and wasn't going to probably be a success? Just want to put that on the list of Wahid's
I do remember
calls.
that.
I didn't say
Ashley Young to Spurs for
I said that if Pep didn't adjust and tweak his system, we might be sitting with a situation. So I didn't put that on the player. I said that obviously he's a very good player. But I said that the team needed to adjust to the player, which Chelsea never did, and made Lukaku look really bad in the league.
Yeah.
So just be careful about what exactly I said.
So guys, fair enough. Wait, one more thing. I just wanted to say, so for me, the big thing with Haaland is he's not so much about quantity, but now you're seeing the quality that he has. He's not touching the ball 90% of the game. He's just in those positions where the team needed him to be in those positions. And that's what we saw them not be able to do previous seasons in the big games like Champions League final and some of those bigger other games in the Premier League. So I think Haaland, for me, to answer the question, he isn't the most feared striker ever. Obviously, that's Harry Kane. But right now, I don't think anyone can really touch the man. And I think it's because exactly like what we're saying, that City team around him play him in such good positions that it's almost impossible to not score. And I think that's what you're seeing they've never had it. And now you're looking at De Bruyne saying, well, I'm just going to throw it up there and he'll be there. And that's what they're starting to do. And the quality of that is just insurmountable at the moment. So yeah, just wanted to add that if you watch Haaland, he's not doing a lot, but he is at the right place at the exact right time. And that's what's proving to be the difference.
Okay. Yeah. So, final topic of the show. Win, guys. Win.
Oh,
win.
Very interesting question.
Arsenal, just wait. Let me get around this, right? Arsenal play Liverpool this weekend.
Yeah.
Right? We've lost to Manchester United. They've beaten Tottenham. They play Liverpool, a Liverpool team that is very beatable.
Shaky, to say the least.
When can you consider, because obviously City's far away, but can you put them in that realm? Do they have enough to beat a City? Like, I want to know, when can I start, walking with a little bit of a different step?
So firstly, what does title contending mean for you? Does it mean having a great run for a while and then becoming second and being behind by 15 points? Or does it mean going close to the end of the season and things are looking, iffy for a bit, and then you lose by 10 points? Like, what
second best team in the league, chasing City.
Second best team in the league.
Then you're not a title contender.
Then we're going to talk about Ole's United being title contenders, which we would never.
So the runners up. So the runners up. And that's why I asked the question, in the sense that I don't necessarily know if if Arsenal have the capacity to get to, let's say, 28 games in the season and keep it close to City, because now we're in that point of the season where the games are coming thick and fast. We've got a World Cup coming, which is unprecedented, and this is that territory where Saliba injury could cause absolute instability. No, I'm not trying to call it into fruition here, but I'm saying
it would
something to him or to Gabriel Jesus, because I think more than any two players in any team, those guys have been the bedrock of what has happened to get you across the line. You didn't have, like, when I think about the Arsenal striking ranks and I think about how much you persisted with Lacazette, and how chalk and cheese things are with Gabriel
Well, behind
Jesus.
Jesus, it's Nketiah. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. And let's
Meanwhile,
not go
we
there.
send Balogun into France and he's scoring every week. So
Yeah, but he should, because it's
the Farmers League.
but it's proving to be a good place for you, right? William Saliba needed to stay there in order to come back as the defender that he is now. So I'm not sure. We are 8 games in. I mean, at this stage of any season, we shouldn't be saying, yes, these guys are the definite title contenders. I do think Arsenal have a great chance with the team, the style of play that they have. The team that they have is relatively well set up, but there are a couple of questions that haven't been answered yet. And I think we'll find those answered out very, very, very soon.
From my side, this is the exact point in the season when City 2-3 years ago under Jose
ran
were
away
first,
with it.
and United and City were 7th and 8th, and I was sitting here going, "Cool, this one's in the bag. Let's go." So I think
in the bag.
Wait, didn't you finish 5th that season and you celebrated in the changing room?
Exactly, but that's what I'm saying. I think Arsenal are still susceptible to a wobble. I don't think that part of their game is exactly gone, as we saw last season, and it'll be interesting to see how they react when that wobble happens, because I think it's a question of when, not if. The one other thing is, I do think everyone's top 4 prediction didn't put kind of Arsenal 5th, maybe 4th. For me, now 6th. I see them as a sure top 4, and that's big praise from our side, just because I think we're a quarter of the way in the season. I do think a wobble's coming, but if you look at and I think that's got 2 things. Arsenal are playing well, but I also think like Liverpool need to sort out their game, or else they're looking shaky. And I also think United are probably obviously not there, but also looking shaky, and Spurs are looking shaky. So I think Arsenal can put a strong 2 hands on that top 4 trophy at the moment, but there's still a long way to go. So I think they are now more in the top 4 kind of conversation, if you want to call it that, than what they were at the beginning of the season. But that's about it.
So Arsenal plays Liverpool this weekend, and I want to talk about Liverpool because they look shambolic, and I know you love talking about Liverpool. Trent is going through so much, but you spoke about how...
Can I just stop you? When I've said before that he's a bad defender, you've laughed at me. So chalk this one up in the Wahid win column, okay? Wahid lost column, then you go chalk this one up. Okay, carry on.
At this point, sorry.
I keep the receipts from everything.
Yeah, but the thing is, you also start to mark on the receipts you don't like. So you'll be like, actually, what I did say was...
Remember when I said Pep was a good coach? That's a win for Dean. For Wahid.
So... we watched Liverpool against Brighton this weekend, and that right-hand side of Liverpool looks really bad. Is Jurgen Klopp a manager who's unwilling to change? Because he says, and to the Trent question... but to the Trent question, right, he speaks of Trent suffering as a symptom of his system, that he wants Trent to press high up.
Because he makes Trent press high, and he could get
like a winger.
He could get the strikers to press there, but he believes Trent is the best player to press there. Yeah.
Is he unwilling to change? Does he need to change the system? Does he have the players to change the system?
Who's he going to put there?
So,
not a right back. Not a right back, but you're trying to rejig the system, because this gegenpress is being broken up by Danny Welbeck and Pascal Gross. If Lallana was on the field, can
you imagine Lallana?
Wahid made a point about Klopp's cycle, and how there's a point where after what did you say, 5-6 seasons,
7 years, Wahid win column,
where all of a sudden everything starts to go down, and that has to do with just how intense the entire system is. So Trent looks bad now because he's been doing this for 7 seasons on the trot, give or take, right? And the other thing about it is that because he's not offering much offensively, his defensive stuff gets exposed. Bad, yeah. And when you look at it, I mean, weirdly, if you use fantasy football as a metric, look at how badly he's done there, because he's not getting assists and he's not getting goals. And those are the things that people have looked at Trent and said, yeah, this guy's got to be in every team because of those things. Once you remove that, and then you suddenly start to really investigate all of the things that are happening, in the back part of the field, which is his actual job, like defending. Then the microscope gets really intense. So I blame Klopp, but at the same time, it's also being exaggerated by the fact that he's not doing the stuff that he's supposed to be doing going forward.
But it's also then, so again, like there's blame at Klopp's door and there's blame at other people's door, because there's a situation where Van Dijk was prematurely talked about as one of the greatest of all time, now is in rotten form, looking like Harry Maguire. So in seasons gone,
at least Van Dijk's playing.
Yeah, yeah. In season, so my point being, in seasons gone by, Van Dijk, being the colossal player he was able to mask deficiencies of Robertson and Trent defensively. He was able to mop up, and they had a really good system of Fabinho being the player to come into the defense when Robertson and Trent were pulling wide and attacking. And at the moment, because of injuries, Fabinho and the midfield aren't filling in those gaps in the defense, and because of form, it's Van Dijk and whichever other clown he's playing with not doing the jobs that they should be doing. And as a result, it's all looking like a gigantic mess. I love it. I absolutely love it.
So they play Arsenal on Sunday. I'm a little scared because I've got a little bit of Mo Salah fatigue. But I do think that when I look at Liverpool, they're not as scary as they used to be. And also, Sadio Mane used to be the issue. It's like with Kane and Son and Spurs. I was apprehensive a little bit, but like 20 minutes into the game, I was like, wait, hold up. These guys aren't actually giving us any problems. But it's also an opportunity for them to come back and fight. But I know if Martinelli goes out wide and causes all sorts of trouble, we could get some joy. Yes. Cyrus, as the league goes by, we didn't speak about Chelsea. One last thing about your team. Aubameyang scores. Is everything okay? You bought Cucurella to bench him?
No, look, but this is the other thing. When we can't look at Chelsea and say, you bought this guy and he sits on the bench, because we've constantly had as a thing to try and have as many international players fighting for positions as possible. So I'm okay with that. If Cucurella comes in and he benches, Koulibaly benching is the one that it's a bit stunning for me. But then I also understand that if you've got a Thiago Silva playing at the level that he's playing at, and wow, did he pull off some maneuver to not get red carded? But you play with Thiago Silva. I think people just like him and be like, oh, you know what, we'll keep you around, buddy. Don't worry. Yellow card for you. I think that Chelsea have got the same issues around creating enough proper chances for themselves that they're just not doing enough. And I think that's one of the key things. Luckily, what we do have is people in reserve who can actually break a game. Gallagher's goal was sensational, but he's one of those where he should be playing more. He has made his mistakes when he's gotten those he's gotten his chances. But I will say, Jorginho is, for me, he's toast. I just cannot see how he gets to. It's his experience that keeps him there. But he's constantly. I mean, Mpo, you might like this analogy from an NFL perspective. Imagine a quarterback with no offensive line, right? That's what Jorginho is like. He's constantly getting swarmed. Where
backwards.
But not just like exactly, or to the ground.
That's like Justin Fields.
He gets on the ball. Exactly. As soon as he gets on the ball, they are on him. They are absolutely on him, and he's not press resistant. If anything,
so Cyrus, I actually remembered my question.
Yes.
I actually wanted to ask these two at the bottom. How do you guys feel that Harry Maguire is going to start at the World Cup, but he's not starting for his national team? For his club?
You know what? This is a Premier League discussion. We'll have a World Cup discussion. Please don't detract from our show.
Yes, I am. Because Eric Dyer should be there, and I'm putting my boy in the mix. He should be at
Eric Dyer will be there, but I don't think either of them are England's best
Tomori
choices.
should be starting.
Exactly.
Tomori should be starting.
He's a fantastic defender. But yes, Maguire, England.
Anyway, we'll talk about that as we go along. Let's cut the show here. Thank you very much for joining, guys. To everybody, enjoy this weekend of football. Liverpool play Arsenal. It's another coronation for Arsenal. Just celebration. Please get around the Emirates. We will be out in our numbers. That's what we're going to be doing.
This is why no one likes you and Paul. This is why.
No, everyone loves him. Everyone loves him. What I love about this is that Arsenal supporters are like, that hot air balloon. When it's on the ground before anything, you're just like, oh, well, what can this thing do? Suddenly it becomes this massive thing. And like, we can go around the world in 80 days. The problem here is, I think this might be the game where Liverpool suddenly clicks and they're like, you know what? You thought that Darwin Nunez was terrible. Guess what?
Look, all I'm gonna say, like Wahid's love for Licha, William Saliba. That's all I'm gonna say. But thanks, guys.
They would make a fantastic pair.
Yes, they would.
Saliba and Martinez.
They
would make a fantastic pair.
Hate to see them hitting the clubs on the weekend.
But as we hit the clubs of the weekend, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, the show is sponsored by Classic Shirts today. Please go get those shirts. And yeah, we've got an FPL show later in the week, so please do watch out for that. And goodbye. And all I can say is goodbye and let's salute.